because I had very uninhibited boys, see. I never was a good boss, so they really kind of raised themselves. A neighbor said one time, "Gosh, how do you keep track of them?" I said, "I don't. They all got a guardian angel. It's up there. It's their job. I can't be in 12 places at one time." Yeah, I think they each got 2. I was born in 24, so I remember the 30s, and the 30s was the time of the dust storms in Missouri, and I remember how horrible they were. I mean, remember we couldn't set the table, put the dishes on, we had to put them on upside down so that you didn't turn them over till you were ready to serve the food.
We were 2 out of 11 children, 6 boys and 5 girls. She was not close to me in age. She was about 10 when I was born. There was 1 sister and 4 brothers younger than she was, and then an older sister and an older brother.
We could ride a streetcar or a bus for 4 pennies, and a penny's worth of candy was a sack full. A lot of things like that I remember. And I went to a Catholic school. We only lived a block and a half from St. Francis, and just a lot of good childhood memories.
The first recollections that I have mostly is when she graduated from high school, and then she wanted to be a nurse, so she took off and went to Kansas City and went to nursing school up there, and it was, I think, 3 years.
I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought, I can't stay home. And my friend had gone away to nurses training. I thought, well, maybe I'd try that. So I wrote to my aunt in Kansas City, Sister Marita, and asked her what it cost to go 3 years of training. And she wrote back and says, "Pat, I got all kinds of scholarships sitting here nobody claims. Just write a paragraph, of why you want to be a nurse." So I did. She wrote back and said, "You got 3 years," so it didn't cost me anything those 3 years. First place I worked was the El Dorado Hospital. It was just that one little building, and I had nurses, student nurses under me. There was a nursing home right next to it for the nurses, and I was the night supervisor the first year I got out of training.
When she got out of nurses training, she had been dating a couple of different guys that I knew, and of course she knew and the family knew. She decided to marry one of them, and his name was Charlie Mason.
Charlie and I went to school together from the 8th grade on when I first moved to El Dorado. He came by one day on my 14th birthday. He asked me to go to the movies, and I said, "Yeah, let's go." So he came by, and we went down to the movie theater there in El Dorado, and afterwards, Old Graves drugstore used to have curb hops, so you never have to get out of the car. They drove up and they took your order, and so we had a Coke or something, and we drove out to the lake, and he borrowed his car. I was 14, but he was still 13, and he borrowed his friend's car, and he was going real fast, and he looked over at me and he said, "Are you scared?" And I said, "Heck no, I'm not scared. If you want to die, I'll die too." So then he slowed down. He was just showing off. So we started going together, and we made a date for our wedding. 2 nutty kids. Didn't have nothing.
Charlie Mason was one of the greatest guys that I ever knew. He always seemed to know when you needed something or when you were hurting, or he had a gift that Everybody loved him. Everybody loved him. And he was always helping somebody. He would give away his last shirt if somebody else needed it. And we were always going to open up a used furniture place. We'd go to garage sales, we thought we would, and pick up little pieces of furniture and take them home, and he'd repair them and fix them and clean them. And we were going to open up this place because there wasn't any place in El Dorado at that time to buy a piece of used furniture. But it didn't pan out. He got sick and just didn't feel like it, and I don't know, we just waited too long. People wait too long to do something they want to do, and then they can't do it, so that's what happened to us. He had heart trouble, and he just didn't have the strength, and well, he just got tired a lot. He couldn't walk very far, but he did stay on his feet for a long time, and then finally he had trouble breathing, and then he ended up in the hospital, and then he got better. That was at Christmas. Then he got somewhat better, and then he ended back in the hospital in March. He passed away on St. Patrick's Day. And he was a great Irishman. I mean, he loved the Irish. I went up to see him because I thought he was, you know, I knew he was dying. And so I went to see him, and I went up to him. He was laying there in bed, and I went up to him and I said, I don't know what to say. And he said, give me your hand. And I put my hand out, and he went like this. And then I left. That was his way of saying goodbye. That was so memorable, and it meant so much to me. He was a great guy. Of course, he had a great woman, too.
I'm number 9 of 12, so by the time I came along, Mom was a seasoned mother. She was kind of no nonsense. Mom had a fiery temper. I can remember roughhousing and rolling around the living room floor with my brothers, and Mom coming through there like a tornado and screaming at us to get the hell out of the house. But she was always very loving. Always encouraged us to say our prayers before we went to bed, always gave us kisses, always told us she loved us. I remember when Mom was going through menopause. The only reason I really knew that is because she was probably a little more irritable than usual and was always sitting down because she was sweating or something or another. I didn't know what the hell was going on. But I remember my dad took my little brother Ted and I aside, and he said, "Boys, I want to tell you something. I don't think you're going to understand this very well, but your mother's going through what they call the change of life. And she might be not quite herself. I just want you to know that you need to be extra patient with her and help her in any way you can, and it'll pass." So I remember that pretty well. Mom always made time, even though there was a lot of kids. I remember one time giving her I must have given her a gift for Mother's Day or something. And a day or two later, I found a note on my dresser that she had written and left for me. And I can almost quote it. It was, "Dear Bill, thank you so much for the necklace. I loved it very much. I just wanted to tell you that I don't get to tell you enough, but I love you. I want you to always keep your faith, and you're going to have to learn how to roll with the punches in life. Love, Mom."
When Charlie passed away and it was just her, she was always making trips. She decided she would move to Colorado. And she wasn't ill at the time. I don't know whether she thought she might get that way, but she wanted to be around her daughters when she was in her last years. So she moved to Colorado, and then she did real well. Then she called me one day and she says, well, I went to the doctor and had a checkup, and they think there's something wrong with my lungs. And I said, well, I said, we both smoked. We all smoked. And I said, that's probably what it is. She said, no, they think there's a mass in there.
Lord, they ran all kinds of tests, and he says, well, you got something in there that don't belong. We don't know what it is, but there's something on that rib.
They did take a biopsy and told her what it was, and they said, you have 6 months.
He said, well, we have chemo and radiation. And I said, well, I don't want that either, because that makes you sick. And get me down, I wouldn't get up. And he said, besides, I'm ready to go. I've lived a long life, and I no use me hanging around any longer.
So she just kept doing whatever she wanted to do, and that was a good thing because she was able to, and she wanted to, and she liked to. She liked to go.
That's why I'm making these trips. I'm going to go around and see everybody. I can settle down. By that time, maybe it'll get to me.
She spent Christmas and New Year's in Idaho. And when she was there, I don't know, something happened and she just got sick.
So I don't know how I'm going to go. But whatever it is, I'm ready for it.
Really, she didn't have a whole lot of symptoms. There was such a little bit of pain. She just started getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And then she went from a cane to a walker, and then from a walker toward the last, she had to be in a wheelchair. And I remember when I told her goodbye, I never used the word goodbye, and she didn't either. She just looked at me and said, thank you. Thank you for everything. And that just made me feel so, I don't know. I just thought I should be thanking her, She taught me everything. I looked up to her all my life. The funeral, it was just magnificent because she had all these children and their spouses and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Just looked like hundreds of them, but there was actually about 75 or 80 at the funeral. Just descendants of Pat and Charlie. It was a celebration and a sadness mixed together, but she just had a beautiful life. And she has a beautiful family. Wonderful family. There are not very many people in this world that could hold a candle to her or Charlie. And I think her kids, well, I know her kids know that. And I know they were good parents, so there's going to be other Pat and Charlies coming out of that family. There just has to be. Like I said, I'll miss her. And, well, I don't know. I feel like she's still here. Every once in a while I think that was just a dream.
the sun sets far away beyond the mountain, and the silvery moon is peeping through the trees. Shadows gently gather round the old plantation, while the bells are chumming softly on the breeze. Then in dreams I wandered back to home in mother, where day just turns the meadow green to white. There the mockingbird will greet me in the morning, and at eve the whippoorwill bids me good night. Where she's sleeping now, the whippoorwill is calling. Over gray the flowers are blooming fair and bright. Pearly dewdrops on the ivy leaves are falling, where the whippoorwill is whispering good night.